Welcome to Behind the Citgo, where we pull back the curtain on the unseen truth of addiction recovery and talk about things most people never get a chance to see. I'm your host, Josh Torbich. Each week, we're sitting down with people who lived it, led it, and are still learning from it today. This isn't polished, it's real, it's raw, and it's noted in the faith and hope because we do recover. So whether you're in recovery, walking alongside someone who is, or just trying to understand what healing really looks like, you came to the right place. Let's dig in. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. Behind the Citgo. I got my dear friend here. Okay, I introduce him like this. It's Snickers, everyone. Snickers has made it into the building. Yeah, all right. So I was telling Heath Cadell, this is Pastor Heath from Reach Community Church in Leland. We love your church. Pastor Heath, I'm really grateful that you can be here today to talk to us. Today's theme, we're talking about recovery. We're going to discuss the church's role actively inside of the recovery community. But I got to say this, Heath, every time I see you, I start feeling extra fat and guilty. Why does that happen?
I don't know. Probably because you don't show up to workouts anymore.
I knew. See, you don't even have to say it to me.
You primed it. You're softball.
You don't even have to say it to me, and I just start feeling
guilt.
I just feel guilt,
man. It was the same way when I was a youth pastor. Like, I'd see kids that had been absent from youth group, and they'd see me, and they'd start off with like telling me why they've been gone. I'm like, we're good, man. You're still alive. Like, I love you.
Like, I didn't ask you none of that. Yeah. I just said, hey, how's your mom? You know, and like, bro, I feel that pain when I see you. I'm like, I ain't been working out, and it's embarrassing. We were talking about this because at my office, there's an AO. You know, we're part of a group. I don't know if I still get to be a part of the group anymore. You're I'm a life for life. There you go. So I'm Beefcakes, Snickers, but it's fitness, faith, and fellowship.
Yep.
Yeah, it's called F3. And they have these sites they set up 5:30 in the morning. All men come out, work out together, peer-led workouts. They have one at my office.
Yeah.
Okay. And over at my office is what happens. I see them out my window. I'm in there working. And then they make fun of me. They point at me through my window, and then they make me feel bad again.
Shame you, Milton.
It's called shaming. Yeah. And is that okay? And what we really called you in to talk about today is in the family of God. Is that no, I'm joking.
I mean, church has been using it for a long time.
That's true. It works. Hey, if you can get you off your butt
sometimes
and back
works.
to a workout.
Sometimes it backfires.
We have a word for it though. We call it emotionally headlocking.
Yep.
That's what it is. The OEH.
I got to EH people.
Got to EH people. Well, today's chat is going to be a good conversation today. We know that, and I'll just preface this with this. You've been a part of our work over at the recovery program, actively involved with it for years now.
Yep.
Your church is so generous to us, financially supports the work we do. You also served as a referral base for us. You've sent many people our direction who are in need of our services. You've also been on the back end and you've caught people who are re-entering society who attend your church. They now participate in that, which is a beautiful thing. I get to share a message at your church annually, so I get to stay plugged in with the folks there. Philosophically, when you look at the Word of God, is there any kind of directive given to the body of Christ about the church's role in this type of community?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could look at lots of different things. I mean, key thing is Jesus came to set the captives free, period. And we're captive to sin, whether it's addiction, whether it's pornography, whether it's, whatever's going on in our life. And that's just one piece of that. It's just a different caveat than all the others.
Yeah.
So you got to look at it at different, from different angles and different views. It's like everything else. I mean, like you don't disciple or work people through the same recovery for different things. Like you just got to look at it through a different lens and kind of care for them where they're at, what they're willing to give you and what they're willing to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept because you always want to see people aspire to be something more, especially from your perspective as a pastor. You really, in your inner wants, you want people to aspire to be like Christ.
Yeah.
That's what we're called to be. That's the highest bar possible. But meeting people where they are those two things kind of a hard thing to reconcile for some folks inside of the church sometimes?
Absolutely. I mean, I think depending on people's experience or their willingness to address things that they're going on. Sometimes people don't like addiction because they have addiction. And if you talk about it, then that convicts them, so they don't want to mess with it. Sometimes people are so far from it that it's unknown, so they don't know what to do with it or with the people. So I think a lot of times people within the church, just because of like they don't know what to do, I don't think for the majority of people inside the church, I don't think they're saying, I don't want to help people or I don't want to deal with addicted people. A lot of them, just like anything else, is just insecurity. Like, what do I do? How do I help? Which is one of the reasons why we partner with ministries, not just you guys, but other different we partner with homeless ministries. There's lots of different organizations that are doing things that we as a church cannot do to the level that like an organization like Christian Recovery Center can. But that doesn't mean that we don't participate. That doesn't mean that we don't join in to what's going on in people's life. I think I would look at it through the lens, a lot of it has to happen relationally. Like if you don't have a relationship with people, unless someone's going to come to you and say, I'm struggling with addiction, will you help me? It's not like you're walking around the room going, are you addicted? Are you addicted? You're not doing that. You're not calling people out.
Could you imagine a new guy shows up to your church?
You're like,
first time here. Yeah,
you look like,
you've been smoking crack, haven't you?
What is that? What does that smell on you? But like, so you have to be relationally connected and have a place within the church that you can say those things. I mean, I try to say during my message or during the times when I'm preaching the word, let me just say it this way. My dad came to visit one time and I was preaching, and afterwards he's like, can I give you a piece of advice? And I was like, sure. He's going to tell me anyway because it's my father. He said, you share too much. And really what that means is I'm a little too vulnerable. Like I'll get up front and I have no problem talking about things that are going on in my life, because I have this view that a lot of times, especially in the South, especially in the Bible Belt, people walk in and they look around and everybody is dressed, like they're not dirty. They're not, they come in, they look like they got their lives together. Their husbands and wives are sitting beside each other. Their kids look like they're behaving, and everybody else's life that's a mess is looking around the room going, I'm the only broken one here. And so like, I want, at least at our church, it to be known that we're all in progress. Like you don't end like this. This journey that you entered into when you said yes to Jesus doesn't end until you die. Like I'm going to be, and I'm 30, I think this is my 31st year on this Jesus journey. And God's not done with me. Like I still have things in my life that God's working on. And so I want to make sure through my message and to my people, we want to be authentic. Because if we're authentic, then it gives people an opportunity to be vulnerable enough to say, I'm struggling with. Because it looks like if the pastor is going to be vulnerable enough, and then that follows into our community groups and people are being honest about what's going on, it'll lead people to have an opportunity to say, like, I'm dealing with something I can't overcome. Because just like any sin issue, addiction, for the most part, we aren't meant to do it alone. Like, I think sometimes God can set us free, but I also believe that in that God intended it to be in community. I mean, that's one of the reasons our name is Reach Community Church. Like, I don't think that we, as people, I'm not going to be who God intended me to be without people that I allow into my life. I mean, you've spoken things to me. There's been times that I've been discouraged and I'm like whining about how things are going or how I feel. And like, I have to have people in my life that I allow to speak. And if I don't, like, I won't be there. So these people, not just addicts, anybody dealing with sin issue, if we hide it, it'll stay the same. And if we expose it, it gives an opportunity, not necessarily that it's going to go away immediately, but it gives an opportunity for it to be brought to the light and for the healing to begin, which is a long process. I mean, any sin issue has a relapse. I mean, there's always these things that if we're not cautious, if we're not careful, we can fall back into anything. And, and I don't talk about it a lot, but I talk about addiction a little bit up front, that we can be addicted to things that are, like I've made conversations or had conversations about alcohol and other things, but It's not necessarily a drum that we beat, but I want that authentic side of going, hey, we all have struggles. So then we can have relationship enough to say, hey, this what's up, what's going on. Because if we don't, then they're just going to sit here and go, you can't handle my mess. So I'm not going to present it. I'm going to try to fix it on my own, which hasn't worked so far. But
it becomes really superficial is what, the aspect that you're describing is trying to flush out someone's honesty, ability to be honest with the things that they're struggling with. And there is a lot of that that's relevant just to the general population. Put the addiction recovery stuff to the side, but people in a general way don't like to talk about admit the things that are ugly.
Yeah.
And when you watch that,
weakness is looked down, being weak on anything. And like one of my favorite, I think it's in 2 Corinthians 12, where Paul is like, he prayed 3 times that this thorn would be removed from his side. And this is a guy who I think his shadow or his hanky, like things, his presence would bring healing to people. And he prayed and healing did not come. And the only thing God said is, my grace is sufficient for you. And my power is made perfect in your weakness. And then he's like, I'll boast all the more in my weakness so that your power can be made manifest in me. And, sometimes like until we get to that place and maybe honestly, some of the best authentic conversations I have is people that have been either through addiction or in addiction. Because if they're working, a 12-step program or there's an honesty there that we don't get. Because, most people in my church are probably hiding a lot of stuff that's killing them. And, people that are in this community, they've realized what I hide is going to destroy me. And I mean, like, I not to mention anybody's name on here, but I have a couple people that I meet with on a regular basis that, they'll just get raw and like this because they know that they can't live any other way. And like our culture thinks I have to be presented as strong to be strong. Where, literally biblically, our weakness is where we get the idea that if we don't live surrendered, we won't have strength. And so we're trying to be strong, and really our strength is killing us because it's hiding whatever's going on behind the surface. And God's just looking for us to be like, I'm weak enough. And I go through seasons of this. I go through seasons where like I can do this, I can make it. And then God will humble me and throw me on my face and I'll go, no, I can't. I need you. And it's that same place that we have to be there.
There's a struggle that most people find themselves in. And I'll say this all the time. My drug and alcohol addiction forced me to a place of brokenness that there wasn't any way I could hide my deficiencies anymore. And what that really sucked, like that was the worst.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in the moment, it was miserable. I hated it so much and it was embarrassing. And I felt so weak and inferior, and all those things. But once you've nestled into that and gotten out of it, you find out like, hey, okay, that was a beautiful experience because of what it turned into. And I say it like, God didn't destine me to be addicted to heroin and, smoke crack behind the Citgo and all of this other stuff. He didn't, smoke crack behind Citgo. He didn't birth me to be that way. Yeah. But since I did, he turned that into something that I now use as a touch point to remind myself of his faithfulness in my life, how far he's bringing me. And you're right. There's a lot of people in the general sense of what the body of Christ looks like that are missing that. They're missing that mark because they've never allowed themselves to experience the vulnerability that's found in brokenness. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. Whenever you're approaching this, when you balance the grace and accountability piece, because it's something we think about, we wrestle with it here, especially inside of the programs. There's a little blip on my radar that goes off whenever I see someone who might be returning to our programs for the 3rd or 4th time. And this isn't anything uncommon. Every family member in your church who's ever had a loved one struggling with addiction, they've always tried to ask themselves the question of, when I'm enabling somebody?
Yeah.
And
When
how
does
do you,
helping hurt?
yeah, when
Yeah.
does helping hurt, right? And the question becomes like, how do you help your folks wrestle with the idea of grace but accountability?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say like my personality is I'm much more a grace person. Like I probably extend grace past the point of being helpful at times because where sometimes I can't see it in my own life. Like I'll look at my own self and go, I don't see a way through whatever. Like I get, like feeling down or whatever, but I would look across the table at somebody and like, man, I can see the potential. And so that potential is kind of the grace that I can see, like you can overcome that. And, but I think there's also places like I've got a guy, doesn't go to my church. I'm actually doing a wedding for he and his future wife in January. He's a part of another recovery ministry back home and had been in and out of addiction for years and went to this one program back home and he had his first like day that he could go out and went to go see home and he didn't want to go back. Like he was going to bounce out of the program and he was going to go right back to like what he had before. And he had a son and like he just, I don't remember if it was his mom, but somehow I got like, he either called me or somebody was like, please call him. And like, he would attribute like me, like this conversation we had got him to go back. And the only thing that I could say to him, I was like, look, because he always, I'm sure you deal with this with people in it. There's always reasons why you should leave. Meaning like people aren't nice to me or this happened or there's this hypocrisy.
The bacon was burnt this morning.
Like you're just, it's so easy to come up with an excuse to leave. And I was like, I just told him, I said, if you leave or if you don't go back, you're throwing your relationship or future relationship with your son away. You have to have something that's going to get you past that point of discomfort because he had, and some of them may have been legitimate concerns about things that were going on. I don't know. I just heard his side of it. But like his willingness, like that day he went back and like a corner turned. And so like sometimes there's points where you just got to tell people like, and I have another, I have a couple other people that I meet with on a regular basis that I'm like you're going to destroy everything that you love for this thing that has been getting in your life. And you've got to find a way past that. I mean, like, and I know there's also points in relationships, like with people, like as a pastor, where I would tell the family members to, tough love them. Like saying, hey, like you extend grace and there's some pieces of it where you've just got to go, here's the rule for whatever. Like, like you've crossed this line, like here's the line. And if you do that again, like you're out. And so I think there has to be, if there's no end to it, you're going to keep them in this place that they want freedom from. And sometimes you have to be, and I'll be honest with people, but like, I still believe, like I'll be sitting across the table from them after they've blown it up again and again. And I believe that there's hope. Like your person that's coming back in the third or fourth time, like, man, God's the God of second chances and third chances. And he can restore after you've blown it up 500,000 times. But like, do you want the weight and the consequence of all of those? So, I mean, it's hard. I mean, like, and I love to believe for them, but sometimes you just got to let them go. I mean, there's lots of examples. We just went through this, and I think First and Second Timothy, they actually named people that they excommunicated. They're like, okay, you've one of them was basically saying that Jesus is already raised from the dead, and they removed him from the church. And there is a place where you've got to just go, hey, you're more destructive to you. And he released them basically over to Satan to kind of, hopefully be saved. Like any of our tough love or any of our accountability would always be motivated by redemption. But yeah, I totally believe there's times where you have to just say, sorry.
Yeah. And, saying sorry, maybe it doesn't always mean there's not an option. It means just this isn't an option, because there's always other choices for folks to pursue. I think about the church in a lot of the different ways that maybe it's siloed itself to only wanting to work within the church.
Yeah.
And I think that's a difficult space that we see. And, a question that we get often is like, oh, so people have to be Christians before they come to Christian recovery centers. And I think to myself, well, no, wouldn't that be
No.
silly,
Yeah.
to think that way? But that does kind of, it formulates the ideal that a lot of people work from. It's that philosophically, there's an expectation that you align with us before we'll minister to you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really work like that.
No.
Nowhere in the text, the Bible, do you see Jesus approaching any of his ministry
Yeah.
like
Hey,
that.
tax collector.
Yeah.
Hey, prostitute. Like,
yeah.
you better fix this before you come in here, or you got to agree with everything.
Yeah. So when we're approaching ministry from within the church, we know that these are people who've decided to come to the church. They
Yeah.
go, hey, I love Heath. He preaches a powerful message. I agree with it.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes they don't agree with it, but when you're up there you're like, these are my people.
Yeah.
We're philosophically aligned. We know that many of them aren't going to come who really need to hear the message. They need to hear the powerful message of Christ, the salvation message that it brings. Your church does work, though, within the community to make sure that it creates access for those people.
Yeah. I mean, like, we have a new group that literally just started by one of our elders. We call it Kingdom Conversation, but it's like an evangelism class. Because the reality is, you're right. Most people, I'm assuming that if you're in the room on Sunday morning, either someone has drugged you there, like not like drugs, but like they brought you there.
Like with a
ball
and chain.
Or they're there because they have interest. And I'm also assuming, like, I feel like part of the calling that God has placed on me, I grew up in the South, was inside of traditional churches for the first 18 years of my life, and I missed Jesus. Like, I could communicate who Jesus was and what he did for us, but I missed him personally. Like, I hadn't surrendered. And so I feel that a lot of my calling is to awake the sleeper, which I think they're honestly not saved. Like, I think a lot of people that consider themselves to be Christians are Christians out of convenience, Christians out of family history, Christians out of, whatever. And I tell this about my children. Like, I have 3 kids, and my kids don't get free access to heaven because their dad has given his life to ministry for their entire life. They have to choose to follow Jesus and be his disciple. And, I look across our room and think, there's people in here every Sunday that have to make a decision that think they've already made the decision. So I feel like that's a lot of our preaching. Wow. But like this class, like we were at Leland, I forget what they called it. They just had a trunk or treat thing that we went to, and that group was there just having conversations with people because, the reality is those that we want, as much as there are people that are going to come that need to hear the gospel and will respond to the gospel on Sunday morning, there are people that aren't going to come that need to have conversations with.
Yeah.
And so putting yourself in environments that you can get in front of people, whether it be like walking around Walmart and having conversation with people, or joining different organizations so you can rub shoulders with people, or joining, even a sports team that isn't, a church team, just to get in relationship with people so you can have conversations with them. So honestly, if you polled our church, the reality is most of them don't believe everything that we believe. Now the essentials, hopefully, but there's lots of things, that they're like, oh, I'm this and you're this. I have a guy that we have that conversation a lot, and we're on the same team. We just differ on, like some of the theological things that are, in my opinion, secondary. But yeah, I think you got to put yourself in positions that you can have conversations with people, assuming that some of them aren't going to think like you think. Like, this was eons ago, but when we first moved here, I love TV and movies. And I was like, what better thing to do than be an extra, which is the worst thing in the world. It literally means sitting around for hours. But one night I was an extra on the show, and a lot of it I did just so I sat around a lot. So I had conversations, and I sat down at this table in this booth I mean, we were in this tent because it was a night shoot and we were there all night. And I sat across
What
from
was
this
the
guy.
TV show? Don't leave us with
Yeah,
this.
the TV show, this one was Revolution, which was filmed here. It was like an EMP went off and like we're back in the,
Okay.
no power stage.
You had us on the hook. Like
I did fly a helicopter in that. I think it's in episode 6. Maybe you can
I thought
see
you
me.
were about to go in the lane of a very famous, what was it again? Grey's, what was the show that was down there?
Oh, Dawson's Creek.
Dawson's Creek.
That was well before we moved here.
Okay, I was about to say, I
Revolution,
thought you were-
there are some episodes. But I sat down at this table. It was like we were just in this holding area, and this guy's sitting across from me reading The God Delusion, which is Richard Dawkins. And I was like, oh my gosh. I never told people I'm pastor because if I start with I'm pastor, they give me what they think a pastor wants. They'll apologize for cussing. They won't be who they are. And I don't want that. Like, I want real. So I never tell people. I don't lie, but I don't tell. And so he's sitting there and I'm like, we talk a little bit that he had been an extra. They had moved from Atlanta and he had been an extra on some stuff. And then later on that night, someone that knew me was like, yeah, hey, Pastor Heath. And he was like, oh, pastor. And then we started going back and forth. And I was like, hey, what's your name? Like, can I follow you on Facebook? He's like, you don't want to because all I post is anti-Christian stuff. And I'm like, no problem. I followed on Facebook. I wrote him the day after and I said, hey, I don't get to, my Christian little bubble is filled with people that identify as Christians or at least go to church. And I don't know anybody that thinks like you. And I was like, can I take you to lunch? And so we went, I think, to 2 about 3-hour lunches. I was like, I'm not going to try to save you, because that's their fear. I'm just going to preach. I just want to get to know you. We talked about TV and music, and he was a musician. And we had some great conversations, and he ended up moving back to Atlanta, and we kept in touch for a little bit, mostly because I wanted him to have an opportunity because his view of Christianity is a skewed view because all he had interacted with was a certain type of Christian. And I was like, man, I can love him where he's at and hope for him. And he would ask me every now and again, like in our very secular conversation, every now and again, he would throw out some little jab and we'd get to talk about, the Bible and how I viewed it and stuff. But, sometimes it's just like that. You just got to put yourself in positions that you can sit across the table from somebody. And
you kind of talking about the stigma that the church creates, the stigma that's on a lot of people who are Christians. That viewing that perspectively, they would say, oh, I can't really hang out with this guy because I don't believe like he believes, and his name's Pastor something. So keep him away from me because or we can't be friends because that happens all the time. Does the church have a stigma when it comes to addiction recovery?
I mean, I think it depends on the church. I think there's lots of we're portable and have been portable we're 13 years old as a church and we've been portable the entire time. We are currently in the works of drawing up a building and hopefully in the next couple of years we'll be in a physical location. But I purchased the curriculum for a Celebrate Recovery. So there's pieces of me. Now it would take not only curriculum, but it would take people that have a heart. The one thing that for our church, I can't do everything. I can't be the only guy that does every little thing. So there's lots of things that I think would be good, but you have to have that person. Yeah. There's a couple of people I've talked to in my church that I was like, man, you would be great. Even Mackenzie, our new our family life pastor, he has some friends that he's been to Celebrate Recovery, with for and with friends. And he's like, man, that organization and what they do, was great. So there's pieces of me that would love to have that, but we're stuck usually messing up you guys because there's been a couple of times where your guys, and I'm so sorry that I think we had a worship night one night. Your cleaning crew came up and we totally messed them up.
Yeah,
but
they've been taught to adjust to those things.
I'm so apologetic. I saw them sitting outside. So I think some of that, yes, it depends on the church. There is a stigma that, that can be perceived I don't belong here, or they don't want me here. I would say, at least my experience, I don't have a lot of traditional guys that I'm hanging around with, from kind of old school traditional churches. A lot of the relationships that I've built over the last years, and this wasn't necessarily intentional, these are just the people that I started hanging out with, they've planted church and they're very kingdom focused. And I don't think Like if the church is kingdom focused, I don't think you can ignore any part of the segment of population that come in your church. It's not like until you have those people there, not necessarily let's go set up a program just because we should have a program. Honestly, like one of the main reasons we give y'all money is because y'all do something really good that we're not doing, and we'll probably never do at the level that you guys do. But there's pieces of it that I'd love to have more of those conversations going on. But yeah, I think there's definitely churches that people would walk into, and because of their background and what they look like and what they wear, they would either not feel welcome or they would be intentionally ignored. But I think most newer churches, I don't know if that sounds whatever, at least in my experience, because a lot of them seem to have some type of program that's helping, whether it's a small group or whatever.
Yeah, I see that too. I'm really impressed by a lot of the churches today because I grew up in the church, and it's ironic now, but it's like, look at that sinner walking in here. What are they doing here? Type of thing. I can remember the feeling of like how different it was to kind of see people who weren't the status quo of our church come into it. And I kind of feel, like the churches that we're involved with today, and maybe that's just because of our exposure of who we are, but there's not a lot of that there anymore.
Yeah.
I don't sense, this really doctrinated approach, to people. And I also know, coming from us, perspectively, we have go visit churches all across the community. And there's many people in our community who want our folks there.
Yeah.
They don't want them to leave sometimes. I'm like, okay, we went to...
my people love it because like y'all bring the worship up another level, not the band. Like you just bring the participation.
Well, that's that worship team you got.
Man, like y'all fill the room. I love it. And not just with bodies, but bodies that are lifting hands and singing because, I think at least my view of it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like they understand salvation.
They're working.
And we understand salvation. We understand Jesus. Then it's real easy to worship.
Yep.
Like if we think, man, I've done most of this work myself, we can worship myself. And like, I don't need to worship this guy. But like when you realize that the only reason I'm standing on my own 2 feet right now is because of him, like you'll worship.
They're working from the perspective that they actively need a savior.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Those things is like almost, I see people who've never had a drug and alcohol addiction. And I'm like, man, a drug and alcohol addiction would do you a lot of good.
Yeah.
Like I hate to say it like
I think,
that, right?
Sometimes, in that going back to your accountability thing earlier, sometimes when you don't get to that place that you've really been broken, can you really build? Because we have so many things that are foundations that shouldn't be foundations that we're holding our life up on. And sometimes you've got to wipe those things out so you can build them correctly.
Yeah. And that's what you're describing there. And tap into this a little bit, because that serves as almost the bridge to a much deeper form of discipleship.
Yeah.
That's ultimately where we need to land. That's where you want the people. I mean, you just described in today's chat, like you're meeting with people on a regular basis. Many people you're discipling and taking through the process. Yeah. Is that the necessary next step for somebody who wants to truly transform their life?
I think if you don't have, and like looking at Titus, and I mean, like you look at Paul, and every one of his writings are written to young men that were his disciples that were leading. Like if you don't have someone above your level, like of where you want to be with Christ, if you don't have somebody above that leading you, like I think you'll stay at this one level. Like we have to have people like, whether it's called mentoring or just relational, having a relationship with people, like we need people that we can look at our life. Like I sit down with another pastor every Thursday, Chris Vernon, Crosswinds, shout out. And like I gave him permission to speak into my life. Like when he has a question about something in my character or something he's seen, like I need men that can look at me and go, this doesn't seem right. Like you better explain. And every person, like if you want to be a disciple, Jesus didn't say, hey, come and get saved. He said, come and follow me. Like come and salvation is part of it. And we talk about this a lot, or try to say this a lot at church on Sunday. Like it's just the beginning of a journey. I think in Southern Christianity, there's this like, man, if I raise my hand and shed a tear and recited a prayer, then I'm done. I'm in heaven. Like I don't have to do anything else. I made the list and I can live any way I want. And Jesus, he asked for followers. That's what he was looking for. He's looking for people that would deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow him. And we've got to have people that kind of walk us through that. Because there's, I was talking to somebody not too long ago. We had a young man that got baptized in our church, kind of recent convert. And I was like, look, what we want to look at ourselves historically is that we're moving in the right direction. Like a lot of times when we think, we're going to get saved and there's this straight line up.
Oh, that's good.
And like, here's where I'm going to get. Like, here's where I'm going. Here's what I'm going to get. But, the truth is our life is filled with ups and downs and hills and valleys. But we want to look at, just like the stock market, like it doesn't matter what it does today. It matters what it's going to do a year from now.
Trend line. Like
we want to see, as long as that's moving up, historically, like the downs are okay, because the downs, like I say this to a lot of people, like, this sounds weird, but I'm going to explain. I'm okay with sin in the sense that sin reminds me over and over again that I still need Jesus. Like, I don't think we ever arrive and we stop sinning. Like, I know there's some churches that believe that. Show me those people. I'll show you that they're wrong. Sorry. That sounds horrible.
I'll follow. What you're saying is, I'll follow them around and show you. Gotcha.
Yeah, we'll record everything and be like,
Yeah.
But we need we need that correction, like where, sometimes when I fall on my face, I can feel horrible and I can wallow in it, or I can, saints are sinners that just get back up. I can choose today. I understand I still have a sin issue. I understand I still need help, and I'm going to get up and keep moving forward. And so like, I think sometimes like we have to have that to keep us going. So, going back to that, like if people understood that, like I tell people, like if you're walking into, like we have, several people that get baptized this year, and I was like, that are starting their relationship with Jesus, you need to understand there's going to be warfare, and you need to understand that you're going to fall on your face. And the key to both of those is Jesus is greater than the warfare, and just get back up and you'll be all right. I mean, that's honestly, lasting to the end is just continuing to move forward.
Sometimes you don't get the chance to explain the context that you just did before people visiting the church, coming into the church, being drug into the church.
Being drug into the church.
They hear the words like sin or brokenness or repentance, and they automatically go to the place of like, whoa. They put the X up and they're like, no, man, like I can't get there. They're about to Bible thump me, know, the whole thing. They don't really agree that the church is actively ready for someone like them. Yeah. What does that mean? Someone like them, right? Do you see that at all with people?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but I think a lot of times people hide. Like most people aren't, like I would say that's authentic. If you're like, hey, I'm not sure if the church is ready for me, then you're at least aware of what you are.
What do they say? The roof is going to fall in.
I think a lot of people.
You don't want me coming there because the roof will fall in.
The roof's going to fall in on me. It's not. Like, Jesus like literally said, I talked about this a couple weeks ago at church, like he did not come for the well. He did not come for the people that had all their mess together. He came for the broken. Like my sermon title a couple weeks ago was called The Gospel for the Guilty. And that's literally what it is. Over and over again. This is who he's there for. And they need to hear it. We need to hear it.
Do you think that the active recovery community has a large part to play in helping support revival in the church?
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah. I think, again, I think I said this already, but like the couple of people that I know that are actively either in recovery or, out of recovery, either still kind of being sponsors for people, like I don't think the church is going to have the revival it needs until we're aware of our sin and ready to repent of it, which it seems like the people that I know, they're aware of their sin and they're actively walking in that repentance. Like there won't be breakthrough without that. Like there's no revival without an awareness of sin and surrender, because you can't go like, God is not interested in taking us a place that we want to go. He's interested in taking us the place that he wants us to go. And so then we have to bend to him and say, hey, I'm following you. Wherever you're going to take me, I'm going to trust you. Like one of the verses, I hate quoting things that I don't have right up. I think it's 1 Thessalonians 5, 16, 17, and 18. It says, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks to God in all circumstances, for this is the will of Christ Jesus for you. I mean, some of us just realizing that everything that's coming my way, God is not surprised by. God is there present with me, and learning to be thankful, even, like sometimes having conversations with people, when you can come to the place of going, I'm grateful for the Citgo, because without the Citgo, the Citgo could have been your death. It could have been the end of you, but that's the beauty of the gospel, is that it took this thing that could have been shame-oriented and becomes a tool to point people like, and I love the sign that are out on the road with your arrest photo and your current family. Like, people need to see that this is a possibility. Because sometimes when they look at people that their life has been relatively easy, like I've not struggled with addiction necessarily. I have issues, don't get me wrong. But like my life has been kind of not too messy. And sometimes people are like, man, well, like my life is messy. Like, will it work for me? And I think you need stories of people just like you. And like when y'all come, when y'all are going to come to Reach and one of your people are going to come and give a testimony, like, man, like people need to hear that there's hope. And there's hope for people that are where they're at. Because like, oh yeah, there might be hope for this person that, is a pretty good person already. Which, we're all broken. Our greatest works of righteousness are but a polluted garment.
Yeah, it's funny when you draw the sentiment that some people have that they have to clean up before they approach the cross. And that's another failed ideology that many unbelievers will keep them at arm's length from finding the salvation that Christ offers and the freedom that comes with that.
Because if they could have freed themselves, they would have done it already.
It would have happened. Yeah, if I could have made my life better, I would have done it. Yeah. No one wanted it more than me.
Oh, yeah.
No one wanted my life to be better than
me. Maybe in full-on high, they're like, this is great, and I never want to leave this. But the problem with most of those things, with any sin, there's always the low afterwards where the guilt and shame comes from it. And no one's sitting in that moment saying, I want, like, this is worth it. Now, you may get to it and think, this is the only thing that I can have.
Yeah.
But like pointing to the, the freedom that Christ can give us. I love that. I think it's in Romans 8. It says, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives inside of us. And that's what people get. Like this Sunday, I'm preaching out of Hebrews 2.
We interrupted your sermon writing.
No. I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
By 2:00.
I was about to say, you finished or not finished?
I'm done. Right. I have not emailed it to my crew, but they don't need it. It's just a rule for me, so I can be physically done with it. But, Hebrews 2 is just about the humanity of Jesus. And he quotes Psalms 8, which is like, what is man that you're mindful of him? And like God had this picture, an ideal of what he wanted man to be, and we failed miserably. In the whole Hebrews 2 gives us this picture that he made himself through his son human so that he could redeem what it was supposed to be, so that we could have hope. Like he became these things, and it ends at the end of 2, and he says it again in 4. Like we have this great high priest that can identify, has been struggled with everything that we've struggled, and understands, can empathize. And I think sometimes we don't look at Jesus through that same lens. No. I think I had this view growing up in the church that, every time I did something sinful, like God was coming, he's about to destroy. Like I think one of the first transformational things, I was reading a study, and it was going through the fall, and Adam and Eve sinned. And because of their sin, they hid themselves. They covered up their nakedness that they had never been ashamed of before. And like my view of God, even though I had read that before, was like, in my view, like most people wouldn't say this, is like God's coming through the garden just destroying trees. Where are you, rotten, dirty? Like I'm gonna mince you up, kind of like the giants from Jack and the Beanstalk. And he didn't do that. He walked in the forest and called out to them. And that picture is that God has been a pursuing God from the beginning. And we have to look at the entire Bible is a pursuit of his children. And some people get stuck in the Old Testament, like God did this. God was always looking to redeem which was lost. He was always ready for the moment his people realized that they were broken, called out to him, he would come and rescue and redeem. And he showed up for them, and he does the same thing for us. Like he's actively interested in us having the best life that we can have, not our view, but his. And that's why we've got to surrender to that piece of him of going, not only has he experienced everything that I've experienced, not only is he calling me out of that, but like he has something for me. When he says, the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I've come to give you life and life abundantly. Like we miss that abundant life because we're still stuck in these two worlds. Like we're stuck in this world thinking, whether it's addiction or just like for me, I tell my church all the time, my addiction is TV. And like, we're always looking for something to give us this, like, fulfill us or make us happy. And it always leaves us empty. And, until we're ready to be like, hey, you're the only thing that's going to satisfy me. And I've got to give my life, not that I have to quit my job, not that I have to, really, we don't have to change much about our life as a whole, like as we live it. We've just got to repurpose what we're doing with the life that God's given us.
Wow.
But
what did pastors like yourself, what would make them effective to the folks struggling with addiction inside of the community? What should they know and how should they approach to make sure they're useful?
I think they need to know that there's resources outside of the church, because I think sometimes, I do it, like there's things that I would love to have in my church that we don't have because we don't have the people, the space, or the money. But just because I can't do something inside doesn't mean that there isn't outside of us. So like I would recommend to pastors of connecting with ministries like yours that are doing that stuff and start relationship, even if they're not ready to like get in the weeds of meeting one-on-one, because they're like, I don't know what to do with somebody that's addicted. Then start having a relationship with some of your staff and some of your people here that are on the other side of it, partly so they can get a view of what can be. So then when they're looking at this person that's a train wreck, like I can have a picture of you, I can have a picture of these people that are in this room going, okay, there's a possibility. And even though we know like it's Jesus that does the work, like we got to know that the work can happen. And so some of it's that, some of it's like I think for me, and I'm a little different, like I'm not a great, this sounds weird. I'm not a great lead pastor. I'm a good pastor. Like I love people and I give a lot of grace and I like meeting with people. Like honestly, if I could narrow my job down and hire it out, so I'm only doing a few things, I would preach and I would spend time with people. Like I like those two things. The running, like we're going to build, and I like the idea of having a building, but like I don't like the idea of like the process.
Logistics.
Like I want somebody else to be the logistic guy. I want to love on people. And I think, and so part of that's coming from me. I love pastoring people, even though it's hard. I think pastors have to get in the weeds some, and they can do it, I think, in safe ways, like with groups of people or with whatever. But I think until they see the possibility, then they won't, they'll stay on the outside of it.
I feel that, I feel that until they see what the potential looks like, they're almost describing how God sees them.
Yeah.
Until they can grab a hold of perhaps the way that God sees them, that maybe they don't have enough energy to even pursue something different for their lives. That's kind of what the faith and hope aspect looks like. Your church is doing a great work. We love being engaged and partnered with them. Invite the folks to your church. Tell them where you are, what you're doing, what time your services are. You have 2 services.
Yeah, Reach Community Church. Our website is reachcommunitychurch.com. We have 2 services in Leland. The address currently is 121 Town Hall Drive, which is the senior center off of Village Road and Town Hall Drive. We have a 9 a.m. service and a 10:45.
This is Pastor Heath Cadell, Reach Community Church. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Behind the Citgo. Love you.
Yeah.
Snickers.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, man.